Hi there and welcome to Yarnspirations. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing, and we're going to take a closer look at Pete the Bunny. Now Pete is one of our Red Heart Amigurumi kits, and everything you need to make Pete is in the kit. You're going to have your main color of yarn, your stuffing packet, your pattern, your crochet hook, your black yarn to embroider his cute little face, a locking stitch marker, and a yarn needle. So all you're going to need is a pair of scissors and your own two hands. So let's jump right in and start making Pete. To get started, we're going to use a technique called a magic ring. This is very common for working in the round, especially for amigurumi. I'm going to take some of the yarn and drape it over my hand. I'm going to give myself a little space between my index and my middle finger. I've brought my yarn over my index finger, under my middle finger, and back over my index finger on an angle, so I'm making this big X. Now I'm going to insert my hook under this leg, grab this leg and bring it through, and now I'm all ready to crochet. And I want to make sure moving forward that I'm using my working yarn, which is what is attached to the ball or skein, instead of the tail yarn, which is the cut end. And that is a thing that I have done wrong multiple times, which is why I'm warning you. The next thing we're going to do is chain one. That gets everything nice and neat and stable. And now it says make 6 single crochet in the ring. So I'm going to make the single crochet the way I normally would, but I'm inserting my hook into the ring instead of into a stitch or space. So I'm putting my hook in the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 2 loops on my hook. 1, 2, yarn over and draw through 2, and that is my first single crochet made. I'm going to do that 5 more times. Insert my hook in the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. So I'm going to keep going until I have done that 6 times. Now it says tug tail to tighten ring. So I'm going to extend my loop a little bit and get my hook out of the way. So I'm holding onto my single crochets and I'm going to grab that tail and I'm going to pull it through. So I want to hold on to the single crochets so they don't jump out of my hand, but I also need to hold loosely enough that there is some play in there, because that tail, you can see it closing up, is got to slide right in there. And then it says take your locking stitch marker and mark the last stitch that you made, and we're going to do that for every single round. We're going to take that stitch marker up and move it up, because you absolutely need to know where your rounds begin and end. For round 2, it says increase in each stitch around. And to make an increase, I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the same single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook in the first stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. That's my first one. And then I'm going to put my second one in the exact same spot. So I've taken 1 single crochet and turned it into 2. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'm moving on to the next stitch. Insert my hook, make a single crochet, and make a second single crochet in that exact same spot. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and that is going to take us from 6 single crochets up to 12. I'm coming up to the last stitch of that round. I'm going to pop my stitch marker off, put an increase, that's 2 single crochet in that last one. There's 1, 2, and then I'm going to pop that stitch marker right back on. So round 2 is completed. For round 3, it says single crochet in next stitch. So that's just 1 single crochet in the single crochet, and then increase in the next stitch. And so that is in brackets, and it says to do what's in the brackets 6 times. So once again, we're going to go all the way around. Single crochet in 1 stitch, increase in the next. For rounds 3 through 7, we're going to have the same number of increases in each round, but the number of stitches between the increases is going to change. And then we're going to come back here for round 8. Here we are at the end of round 7. We have a flat circle now, and that is the top of Pete's head. The next thing we're going to do is work even. That is single crocheting in each stitch around for rounds 8 through 18 without making any increases or decreases. And that's going to take the fabric and have it straighten itself out. The other thing I want to point out is that now is a terrific time to take your tail and thread it onto your yarn needle and secure that end at the beginning. It's far easier to get in here and do that weaving in when the piece is flat than it will be when it's more 3D and has more of a shape. All right, I have completed the work up through round 18. For round 19, it says single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches, which I have already done, and then it says single crochet decrease. So let's take a look at that. We're going to insert our hook in the next stitch and yarn over and draw up a loop like we would for a regular single crochet. So I have 2 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to go to the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, and I have 3 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on my hook. So I've taken 2 stitches and turned it into 1. Let's take a look at that again. We're going to single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. Insert our hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, and then insert our hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. We have 3 loops on our hook, 1, 2, 3. We're going to yarn over and draw through 3. So I'm going to finish rounds 19, 20, and 21, which all have those single crochet decreases in them, but you're going to follow along with the pattern to see how many stitches to put in between. And then we're going to come back and talk about stuffing. All right, we have finished the head and body through round 21, and now it says start stuffing head and body and continue as you go. So the reason we are beginning now is as this piece starts to close up, it's going to be really hard to get in there with the stuffing, so we want to do it while we have a wide open space to dig into. So I'm going to open up my stuffing packet, and as you can see, as soon as just watch, as soon as the air hits it, it's going to start expanding. So you have plenty of stuffing in here. So I like to take out a chunk at a time. And I'm going to break it up a little bit with my hands. Make sure it's got some air all in there. Make sure there's no big clumps of anything that will look lumpy. And then I'm going to start putting it inside the head and body piece. Now this is not too difficult because it's pretty much an open area. But as you make the different amigurumi we have in this series, and if sometimes you are stuffing something that's a little smaller, it's a great idea to use the soft side of your crochet hook to make sure that you're getting stuffing all the way where it needs to go. So I don't need this to be full to bursting, but I do want to get it pretty full. As I close the piece up, I can always add a little bit more. But I want to make sure that I've gotten down into all the areas at the bottom that will be hard to reach later. I'm going to keep crocheting rounds 22, 23, and 24, and then I'll meet you back here to close up the bottom. All right, I have finished all the crocheting for my head and body piece. I have 6 single crochets left. I took this opportunity to stuff a little bit of last minute stuffing in there, and I threaded my long tail onto my yarn needle. So I want to tighten up this bottom circle, so I'm just going to go down and up, down and up, all the way around, down and up, down and up. So I'm back at the beginning. I'm going to give that a big tug and close it all up. And then I'm going to weave in that last end. I want to secure it. I want to make sure it's good and tight. Once again, more of an art than a science. And now one of the things I like to do with an end, and we will be doing this more as time goes on, I'm going to try and weave it through in the back of some of these stitches. I don't want to see it coming through on the front. It's more of a feeling thing than a seeing thing. But the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back down where I came out, and I'm going to have my needle pop out anywhere a couple of inches away before I trim it close. So I'm going to trim my thread right here. What that does is there's a tail now inside the stuffing. So when it went through the stitches, that's where I'm going to really secure it. But because that tail is long and it's hidden inside the stuffing, it is less likely to pull out. And so it's just a way to make Pete the Bunny a little bit more secure. Now let's take a look at making the ear. Let's look at this magic ring one more time. I'm going to bring my yarn over my hand, give myself a little space between the index and middle finger, go over my index finger on an angle, under my middle finger, over my index finger. So here I have my X. I'm going to grab my crochet hook going under this leg of the X, grabbing that one and pulling it through, and I am all ready to crochet, making sure that I'm crocheting with my working yarn, which is the yarn attached to the ball or skein, not the tail yarn, because that's a very common mistake to make. Now it says chain 1, 6 single crochet in the ring, very like what we did when we get started. Extend my loop a little bit so I don't lose it. Hold on to those 6 single crochet and pull the tail, forming all of that into a ring, and making sure that I take my locking stitch marker and lock the last stitch that I made. Once again, I'm going to move that locking stitch marker up with every round that I make. For round 2, it says single crochet in each of next 2 stitches, increase in next stitch 2 times. So there's my first stitch. Sometimes the first one's a little tight just because we pulled that tail so hard, but that's not a you problem, it happens. Here's 1. 2. Increase in the next one. Remember, the increase is 2 stitches in the same stitch. And we're going to do that one more time. So for the ears, you're going to follow along with the pattern through round 6. That's where the increases are going to be, although there's not as many of them as there were when we made the head and body part. Rounds 7 through 14 are work even rounds. That's single crochet in each stitch around. Round 15 has some decreasing, and then there is a little bit of a fancy finish on the last row, so I'm going to meet you there and we'll take a look at that. All right, round 15 of the ears is finished. It says do not stuff the ears, flatten the last round, and working through both thicknesses, single crochet in each of next 5 stitches. Fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing. So I'm going to get rid of this stitch marker now because I don't really need it. And I'm going to squish it so that my work is flat. 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go through this stitch and this stitch that is directly behind it, yarn over and draw it through all of it. Let me tighten that up a little bit, it's a little bit loose, and finish my single crochet. And then I'm going to the next stitch on this side and the next stitch on that side. And I'm going to leave a tail so I can sew the ear into place and pull it through. So you're going to make 2 ears. Then you're going to make 2 arms and 2 feet, and you are going to start them and follow along the same way that we made the body. You're going to start with the magic ring, put your stitches in there, and just follow along with the patterns. And then you're going to make a little tail, and then we are going to start assembling everything. To sew on the feet and the arms, you're going to thread the tail from when you finished off your piece. You're going to thread that right through your yarn needle, and you're going to flatten each of the appendages. We're not going to stuff them. The way to tell the top from the bottom is the top of the rabbit is where we started with our magic ring, and the bottom is when we wove in our ends. It's not a huge difference either way, but that will help you get started. For the feet specifically, it says sew them between round 22 and 23, and we only had 24 rounds, so the 24th round is the centermost one. So 22 and 23 is the between the second and third round from the center. So all I'm going to do, I have flattened my piece. I'm going to dig into the body, and I'm going to come up through the stitches. Now the same way that when we did those single crochets at the bottom of the ears, we wanted to make sure that we went through both layers. I want to do the same thing here. I want to go through both layers of the feet, because I want to make sure that I'm going through all the stitches. It makes for a nice, neat seam. So when I get that all sewn in, I'm going to go ahead and weave the end in like we did earlier by working it through the back of some of the stitches of the body, and then running that tail through the stuffing and bringing it out on the other side to make sure that I have lots of room in there so that the tail doesn't pull out. So there's the beginning. I'm just going to weave that in. And then I'm going to put my other leg, my other foot right here, so I get my little V shape. For the arms, it says position the arms on either side of the body between rounds 10 and 12 using the long tails, sew them into place. So we're going to sew them in the exact same way, but what I like to do is use my locking stitch marker to mark the placement, because it helps me figure out that I have things in the right place. I don't want to sew them down and then not like them and have to pick it out. So it says between rounds 10 and 12, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here's 10. And I'm going to go off to the side. And you can eyeball it. Each one of these is going to have its own little character. And I'm putting my stitch marker there, so now I can make sure that that's exactly where I want my arms to be, and then I can grab them and stitch them on. For the ears, it tells us to fold them in half at the bottom, and we're going to put 1 or 2 stitches in to just hold the front and the back together. And we're going to go right through the single crochets we made on that last row. And then it says, position them between rounds 2 and 3 and sew them into place. So once again, I put my little locking stitch marker where I want my ear to be. Helps me judge where things are going to go. And I'm going to just take a couple of stitches. These are nice and stiff now. They're going to stand up straight. So I'm going to dig into the head, and then also through the stitches of that last row. Into the head, into the stitches of that last row. I'm probably going to do one more, and then I'll weave that end in the way we have woven in the other ones. I'm going to pull that super tight so it stands up nicely all by itself. For the tail, it says position the tail at the center back of body between rounds 16 and 20 using a long tail, sew it into place. So we're going to do it again the same way we've been doing it, but I just want to point out with the tail, unlike the other appendages that we have sewn on, we don't want to squish it flat. We want to have a little bit of depth to it. And so we're going to go around making sure that we go into most, if not all, of that last round of single crochet. But I want my tail to hold its circular shape. So unlike the other appendages, I'm not squishing it flat. I'm trying to make sure that my little guy is holding its circular shape. Once again, when I finish this up, I will weave in the ends the same way that we did the other ones, by working the needle through the back of the stitches for some security, and then taking them way far away so I have some extra tail yarn hanging out inside the stuffing so that it doesn't pull out. Last thing I want to talk about is embroidering on the face. Now for the eye, I have marked where I want it to go, and I need to anchor my black yarn. So in a similar way to where we were weaving the ends in, I'm bringing the needle from the back of the work through some of the stitches, but you have to keep it way towards the back because you don't want the black to show through. And then when I get it where I want it to be, I'm going to pull it through. There we go. And I want to make sure I don't pull it all the way out, because there's no real easy way to like put a knot or any other kind of an anchor. So when I get to the end of this strand, I'm pulling it very slowly until it just barely goes inside. So for the eyes, it says embroider eyes on round 10, which is the stitch that I had marked, leaving 4 stitches between them, and make 5 or 6 stitches in the same place for each eye. So I'm just going to go over this stitch that I marked. Now I personally think that 5 or 6 stitches is a little much, but you can do that if you want. I've been doing 3 or 4. There's 2, let's do 4. There's 3. Whoops, I got my ear caught. And then I'm going to go down for 4, and it said leave 4 stitches between them. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and bring my needle over here. You don't want to pull too tight. You don't want his little face to squish in sideways. And you can see I pulled a little bit of stuffing out. It came out with the needle. That's not a big deal. You can just trim that off. There's plenty of fluff in there. So let's go ahead and do our other eye. We decided on 4 stitches, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, if you're doing this and you put in a stitch and you don't like it, you want it to come out, it's no big deal. All you have to do is pop the needle off of the thread, and then you can unpick it. So you could take the needle right off and just unpick the stitches one at a time. So for the nose, it says embroider the nose between rounds 11 and 13, making sure that the nose is centered between the eyes. So I'm going to bring my needle down here for my 4th stitch, and I'm just going to loop the yarn right down here. So I had 4 stitches in between, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my center is going to be about here. We worked over round 10, and it's telling me to go down between 11 and 13. So I'm going to go just under the eye that we finished. And again, honestly, more of an art than a science. When you are happy with your little friend's face, you are good to go. There we go. So my center is right here. So I'm going to go down here and come up here for my little V. And then my last little bit is a couple of rows under. Alright, so he's a little crooked, but we're going to live with him for today because I have to keep going here. Let's put that there. I think that would help. Then it says for the eyebrows, put them 1 round above and 4 stitches away from each eye. So they pulled them way to the outside. So we're going to put them around above. I'm probably not going to go, I guess 4 stitches would work for me. Let's go here. And again, I am really just sort of freehanding this whole thing. If you wanted to use, again, locking stitch markers or pins or whatever you want to do to mark where you're going to put your needle to make sure it goes exactly where you want it to, that's okay too. But I tend to just wing it and go for personality. So I'm taking that right across. You see I'm using that round right there as a guide. And let's put my angle, let's see. Let's go here to match the other side. And then I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to run this needle behind and through a bunch of stitches to anchor that thread. Again, it looks really weird on camera, but I'm just trying to sort of weasel it in there because I don't want that black to show on the front. And you can see we have plenty of black yarn left over. So you could have gone 5 or 6 stitches for the eyeball if you wanted to. There's our little face. And then once again, I want to go exactly where I came out. Bring the needle out a couple of inches away. Give it a pull. And let that yarn recess into the stuffing and hide. So there's the face we just made. And here is my little friend, my Pete the Bunny, that we did earlier. So we have his 2 little feet in a V that are flat, his 2 little arms that are flat and not stuffed, our 2 ears that we folded in half and stitched on, our cute little bunny tail that has some depth because we did not squish it flat, and then lots of character in our little eyes. So thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you had a wonderful time making your Pete the Bunny. Once again, I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing, and I'm so happy you joined us here at Yarnspirations for your Red Heart Amigurumi Crochet Kit video of Pete the Bunny.